My dad has been a nerd all his life. His glasses are so thick you'd swear he's blind. He reads dictionaries for fun. He's really good at math, not so good at social skills. He's that guy who always has food stains on his shirt. He's never fit in, and I used to think he didn't notice, that his quirkiness was just something my brother and I, and even my mom, could laugh at. But a couple years ago, we went to Yonsei for his college reunion. I wanted him to look impressive, so I brought him a brand new Burberry polo. When I met him on campus, he already had stains all over it from the buffet lunch, but his face split into a huge smile. He was so proud to be with his alums, showing off to his daughter and her American husband. A couple days ago, I visited him, and he told me about how he was recognized as the Korean vegan's father at the post office. He was shocked and surprised and thrilled all at the same time. And guys, can you understand why I'm so happy? So happy that my nerdy little dad, who never fit in, is finally getting to be one of the cool kids, and that I'm the nerdy one now looking up to him. My father always discouraged me from showing any emotions, and he didn't show much himself. Once, when my dog died, instead of hugging or comforting me, he told me I needed to stop crying because it was not good to show so much emotion. I really hated him at that moment, and I'm not gonna lie. I honestly think I had a hard time knowing where I stood with my dad for a long time because of his refusal to show any of his feelings to me. He had one weak spot, though, and that was movies. For a man who was so emotionally closed off, it was like a film somehow released the floodgates and the tears would pour down his face while he hoped that no one could see. One day, we all watched the movie The Little Princess together, and if you haven't watched it, it's about a little girl who gets separated from her father during the war. The father ends up going blind, and after years of being parted, he hears his daughter's voice for the first time and starts crying her name until she runs into his arms. My dad was crying so hard, he had to pause the movie, head to the bathroom, and collect himself before we could all finish. And at that point, I kind of knew exactly where I stood with Daddy. Getting a divorce in Korean culture is still pretty taboo, so I was a little worried about my parents' reaction when I finally filed. But I was pretty surprised. My mom told me that if he ever showed his face, she would beat the shit out of him, and my dad rose a glass to me over dinner and then tried to shake my hand in congratulations like I just announced a promotion. I'd always wondered how much it had hurt my dad when I came running to their house, crying and shaking after another grueling fight with my ex. But he never said anything, to the point I sometimes wondered whether he'd even noticed how much my heart was breaking. I always chalked it up to the comfortable aloofness he and I had developed. I don't think my dad has ever once said the words "I love you" to me in all 40 plus years of my life. But every year on my birthday, he would send me a pretty pink card with flowers on it and write "I love you," followed by a note that always made me cry. The year I got my divorce, though, he wrote something a little different. "I love you. It's time to move on, isn't it?" And for some reason, the "isn't it" told me just how much my father had cried with me, even when I wasn't looking. When I was little, I promised my dad I would take him to paradise, like they sang about in South Pacific, our favorite musical. After a few years working at the firm, I took my parents to Hawaii, and I thought, wow, I'm actually going to take my dad to paradise. We stayed at a beachfront resort in a block of oceanfront rooms. I took him to all the fancy restaurants, and I even booked a tea time for him at one of the most outrageously beautiful golf courses on the island. But he spent most of his time reading a book on the balcony of our hotel room. Last summer, after years of twisting my arm, I finally agreed to go with him and my mom to South Korea. The moment I arrived at around 11:30 at night, he clapped me on the back and his voice boomed into the stars. "Joanne, you finally made it!" And we spent the next 10 days visiting his elementary school, the 300-year-old tree that guarded his family cemetery, his alma mater, the English building that looks so much like the one I went to in college, and at some point, while taking endless photos of him, I realized that paradise isn't really a place on a map, but the shape of one's heart.